Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Mom Mode. Today, we have a very special guest, Kaitlynn Miesner, and we are going to be sharing her daughter's, her name's Harlow, and it's Harlow's story. So I'm just so excited to meet you, Kaitlynn, and I'm excited for everyone that's going to be listening to this podcast to hear about your story and Harlow's story.
Yes, I'm so excited to share it. So yes, my name is Kaitlynn Miesner. She will be 10 months old tomorrow, and she has been in the NICU all 10 months, and she has quite the story. And so I'm very excited to get to tell it today and show everyone the purpose of prayer and hope and what we've gone through.
Yeah, I am so excited. So I actually came across Kaitlynn's Instagram and I was just started reading about Harlow, and she's kind of a warrior and this little miracle, and I was like, we need to share your story. So I'm super excited. Um, can you just share a little bit about yourself, like, who you are, where you live, and just
Yeah,
just
so
little details about you?
of course, we're in Arkansas right now, Fort Smith. Me and my husband are both nurses. I've been a nurse for a little over a year, work at a rehab hospital. I'm 25 years old. We have one dog with us. We actually just got to buy our first home. We've lived in our first home for a little over a year. I'm gonna say he's gonna want to be in it today. But yeah, we've been married for a little over 2 years, been together for almost either 7 or 8 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yes, we were both lifeguards
Both
at a
lifeguards, now
water
you're both
park. So
nurses.
yeah,
The same career paths.
yes,
I love that. Yeah, you got married, was it June 18th?
yes.
I had looked on your Instagram. That's actually the exact day that my husband and I got married. So
Well,
June
that is
18th, 2022.
that is such a small world. Oh my
I
gosh.
know. I
I'm like,
know.
I
I
think,
had like,
yeah,
yeah, you had posted something and you're like, oh, I think it was like been married for a month, and it was like July 18th. And I'm like,
yes.
wait, that means that we got married on the same day.
It was a very hot day. I don't know about in Illinois, but
It was actually so we got married a little north in Wisconsin. It's like 40 minutes from our house. And it was actually like a perfect day.
okay,
Like
ours
we
was
were worried it was going to be,
115 degrees. Yeah,
oh my
it's
gosh, I didn't
hot.
even know Arkansas gets that hot.
That's terrible. It's not fun. And then, of course, it goes from 115 to like 15 degrees in
Yeah.
these winter times.
Oh, I know. Yeah. We were in the negatives last week. So
Oh no,
not
I'm not a
fun.
cold person. I'd rather have all the summer days.
I'm with you. Well, let's get diving into the details about Harlow because
Yeah.
I am so excited to learn about this, just to learn about her and this.
Yeah. So this was our first baby. I can just start from the beginning
Yeah,
about.
start from the beginning. Like,
Yeah, we were trying to get pregnant. I got put on medication. I have PCOS. So they kind of told us that, we could have a chance of having trouble getting pregnant. And so they started me on medication, and I was on it probably like 3 or 4 months. We got pregnant. We tested super early. Um, so we made an appointment. Everything was super fine. I was super sick at the beginning of my pregnancy. I was only pregnant 6 months, but 5.5, I was completely sick, threw up everything. I lost 20 pounds. I had no
wow.
baby bump, like couldn't even tell I was pregnant. And I always in the back of my mind was kind of like, I'm not looking pregnant. I don't have anything there. I want, is that, and I always would voice that to my doctor, and she would, it's okay. Some people just don't show any signs or, have any weight gain until the last trimester. It's okay. Well, everything was fine up until I was 19 weeks pregnant. We had my anatomy scan. I was 19 weeks, but Harlow at the time was only measuring 17 weeks, which they didn't think that was anything. That was also the appointment where we found out it was a girl because we had done a blood test at 13 weeks and it came back a boy. So we had already announced to like family and friends that it was a boy. So at that anatomy scan, I was 19 weeks, found out we were having a girl, and she was also the week of like a 17-week baby. So just a few weeks behind. They said they had no concerns at that point. They wanted us to come in a month and just see if she was going to grow. That would kind of show us that month growth or whatever. And went back. Actually, that month, I stopped throwing up. I think I gained like 2 pounds it was. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. This is awesome. Everything's fine now. Well, went in, me and my husband were super happy. I laid down on the table and you know how they tell you like the due date, like
Mm-hmm.
your projected due date. Well, ours was June 25th at that appointment. And it was, I think, March 4th. At that appointment, I was 24 weeks. She was measuring 20 weeks. And the due date was now like July 25th. So like a whole month, like longer than what we were supposed to have.
Mm-hmm.
So we were still happy. We were like, okay, maybe we just really got the dates mixed up. Like maybe we thought we just found out super early and like we've been wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, we walked in happy. I had photos of that day on my phone, like me smiling with the ultrasound pictures. Like we were super excited. Doctor walks in and says, I just don't like what I see. So our moods immediately
Oh
changed.
boy.
Like, what do you mean? Like she was 7 ounces at our last appointment to now she was 12. I mean, this is our first child. So we were like, okay, that's fine. Like she's growing. Like that's great, whatever. Well, then I ended up losing amniotic fluid as well. And my water never broke. Nothing ever like we never knew that I was losing fluid. And she came in and, you know, we're both nurses, but we had it's like when you're in that situation, you have no idea. Like the words
Mm-hmm.
just aren't making sense. You're seeing black. You don't understand. And if my husband wasn't there, I truly don't think I would have known like what was actually going on. So she told us, you know, I don't like what I see. There's less amniotic fluid. There's not a lot around her. She's not gaining weight like she should. And she told us that we'd be having her a lot sooner than we thought. And I was only 24 weeks at this time. And so my husband was like, so you're thinking like pretty soon? She's like, yes. She's like, I'm going to schedule you with a specialist for him to take a closer look, see what happens. I would just want you to keep your phone on you. So me and my husband have drove to this appointment ourselves, and he was just going to drop me off at my mom's house so we could go pick our baby shower, take out and everything. So we just get this terrible news that sooner or later she's going to come. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we don't really have a choice. It's going to happen. So, you know, we call our close family and we let them know, like, we don't really know what's going to happen in the near future. And, she told me to keep my phone on me. So he drops me off at my mom's house and I'm sitting there, I'm crying and she's consoling me, telling me everything's going to be okay. He's headed to work now. And probably 10 minutes, I get a phone call from my OB. She's like, hey, I actually got a hold of the specialist. We both were talking. We think at this point, it's probably your best option to come in and get admitted into labor and delivery so we can start steroids and everything.
Like that
I'm like,
day.
that day, like right then, she wanted me to
Oh
drive to
my
labor and
gosh.
delivery. And I'm like, bawling. I'm like, okay. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, are they going to make me have a baby? Like, I'm 24 weeks. Like, she's not even a pound. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, and so I call my husband. I'm like, hey, they want me to come get admitted. So he immediately turns around and he's like, okay, I'm headed there. So my mom drives me to the hospital. We start walking into labor and delivery. My husband comes up right behind us. They start me on magnesium for neurological protection of the baby. They started a catheter. They started an IV. They have, I'm not sure the steroid shot it is, but you can only get like 2 doses of it. They have to be within certain time frame for it to even work, everything. So right when I got there, they gave it to me in my hip and you get the dose that day at that time. And then 12 hours later, you can get the second dose of it. So it's a pretty like strict time, medication. Gave it to me and everything, started it. So my OB came. It was my mom, dad, my husband, and mother-in-law there. They all came to the hospital and my doctor came in and I was like, hey guys, you know, this is what I see. This is how it looks to me. And she had mentioned something about traveling to another hospital that has a higher NICU because our NICU in our home is only a level 2. And she's like, this would be a level 4, you know, and she mentioned about Little Rock, Arkansas, which is 2.5 hours away from us. She mentioned it to us and my mom looked at her and was like, so when would you, you know, consider Little Rock? And my doctor looked at us and said, right now. Like, this is something that I want you to go today.
So what made them obviously admit you and like give you the magnesium and then make that decision? Did they see something else when you
I
got
think how little she was. Our level is a level 2, so it's only 24 weeks and above they can deliver. But since Harlow wasn't the size of a
okay.
24 weeker, and so I think they were kind of like all the signs are showing that like Harlow's going to be coming pretty soon, and like if she has an option, it's going to be in Little Rock at a level 4 NICU. So all kind of turned around real quick and they're like, this is the best thing for her. Let's go ahead and start the neurological protection in case she is delivered. And so they told us that. Well, they tried to get an ambulance and they could not find us anyone. So then I got air flighted
Oh my
to the
gosh.
hospital. Yeah.
Like,
And
what
so
were
I
you
was
feeling at this point? Like, were you just
absolutely
in like fight or flight mode?
terrified. I was like, I don't know what are we supposed to do? We think of like preterm babies. Like I was preterm and I was like 4 weeks early when my mom
Mhm.
had me. And like, it never actually, like I couldn't comprehend a baby actually coming at like 24 weeks. And I'm
Mm-mm.
terrified. And all I want my husband to come with me in the helicopter. I'm like, this is our baby. Like, I don't know. You already grow so much attachment to that thing that's in your
Mhm.
belly and you don't know anything about it. And, they're telling us that it's going to happen. She's going to be here. We're just trying our best options for her at this point. So I have to go in the helicopter ride by myself. So no
Why
one could
why
go
wouldn't
with
they
me.
let anyone come with?
There wasn't enough room.
Oh
So it
wow.
was literally
Oh
me
my
and then the three
gosh.
guys that were the EMS, the helicopter nurses and everything. And so they got me there. My mom and dad, and then my husband and his mother-in-law were both speeding up to Little Rock. Thank goodness I have a sister-in-law that lives in Little Rock. Because then I'm terrified. I'm like, what if something happens right when I get there? What if the heartbeat
Mhm.
does stop? What if something happens and I'm all alone? And so
Oh
thank
my
goodness
gosh.
the second I wheeled in to the room, my sister-in-law walked in
Ugh.
and like was there. And they, cause as soon as we got there, it was all pretty fast paced.
Mhm.
Doctors came in to talk to me about emergency C-sections, anesthesia. I was signing paperwork, like if all these things are happening and whatnot. And, they came in and they said, okay, we just need an ultrasound. We need to see if the heart is still beating. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, she's always been great. We've never had an issue with her heart rate. We've never had anything crazy up until now, randomly, her size.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I was terrified. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. What do you mean if her heart stops beating? Like that was never, no one ever said anything about her heart not beating.
Mm-mm.
So signed everything. She was fine. They looked at her, saw the measurements of her, and they said, okay, we're going to wait a little bit and more of us will be in here to talk to you. Thankfully, it was a little bit, just me and my sister-in-law, thank goodness. Um, they came in a little later after my husband had got there with our family. That's when they kind of like, yeah, we just need to keep you on the monitor. Or they wanted to. And they were like, but she's so little. She's not going to look good. She's too small to show up and have a decent, you know, heart rate strip and everything. But our main concern is if we put you on the monitor, she will look bad. And we can't just sit here and watch her look bad. Like something would have to happen at that point. What are you supposed to do, Like they're
Yeah.
sitting here telling you her heart rate could stop, but if they put you on the monitor, they may have to take her. When
So
it's
what, yeah, what's the difference? So the monitor is like when what they strap around like your belly, right? To
belly,
like
yes,
see like her heart rate,
heart
her
rate
movements,
constantly.
everything.
Yes, and she was just too tiny that she wasn't going to pick up on that.
Oh
So
my
like
gosh.
every now and then they may get something, but they can't sit there and look at that strip and see a little heart rate here and there and not see it for a couple seconds or a few minutes because she moved and
Yeah.
not take us in for an emergency C-section. So at this point, we still really didn't know anything that was going on. We didn't know why she was small. We didn't know if there was any factors going into that. And of course, as a mom, I'm like, it's me. It's my fault. I wasn't able to eat when I was pregnant with her. Like, I'm the reason she's so little. This is all my fault that we're having to be going through this. And so we all were just trying to take it step by step. And that was Monday night that we had gone there. And we're like, okay. And they're telling us, Tuesday you'll get more answers. We're going to go for a Doppler of your umbilical cord and we'll see. And all day Tuesday we sat there having no idea what was going on. They came and got me finally later that afternoon for their ultrasound of my umbilical cord. And again, I was by myself. No one could go with me.
Mm.
Not my husband, not my parents, no
And
one.
why was that?
Just since they had to take me down to a certain room, no one could go with me because we
Oh
asked if
my
he could go.
gosh.
So then I'm sitting there in the room with the stranger. We're 2.5 hours away from home. I'm in this place and I have no idea what's going on inside my body. We're told that our daughter's going to come at any point she could come. And I'm sitting there with her doing the ultrasound on me. And I'm sitting there, trying to grasp any emotion that I can from her face. Like, and she's saying, there's the kidney, there's this. And I'm just joking internally. I
Mm.
can't do anything. Like nothing's making sense. And you're trying to like get whatever you can out of her and we can't tell you. So finally got done with that after a while. And again, Harlow was so little. There were so many things they couldn't see with her, no matter what. I was turning to my left, to my right, trying to do everything that we could to see anything that we could.
Mm-hmm.
And, so went back to the room, no answers. A little later, when a neonatologist came and talked to us, a NICU doctor, whatnot, and, told us that they found out that my cord was, it was starting to absent flow. And so she was only getting blood flow intermittently. And that's why she was so growth restricted, because she wasn't getting all the blood flow and the nutrients that she was supposed to.
So is this why you were also losing amniotic fluid, or was this something separate?
It was something separate.
Okay.
They never told us exactly about the amniotic fluid. They think that she was just drinking it and
Oh,
then wasn't producing it back out.
okay.
But yeah, so they
Maybe
told us
because
about,
she needed it, because she was so
yeah,
little, because the umbilical cord wasn't giving her what
wasn't
she
doing what
needed.
she needed. Yeah, it wasn't giving her the nutrients. So that Tuesday they come in, we had doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor coming in and saying the same thing. The chances of her making this, very unlikely. The next step in this cord, that the umbilical cord, is for it to start to reverse. And so we're just hearing time after time. I mean, it was like someone would come in our room, me and my husband would sit in my bed and bawl. Our family would be bawling in the room. We would finally, because after everything, after they tell us at that point, she was only 330 grams, which is super, super itty bitty.
Yep.
And they said, we don't have the equipment to try to resuscitate the size of a 22-weeker. Like that, her options just were at that point weren't really anything. And
So you were 25 weeks at this point, or
I
how
was
far along?
I was 24 weeks, and she was
24
the
weeks
size of a
measuring
20,
22.
20 at this point. She
Oh,
was even
20.
more growth restricted. Yeah. And so we have doctor after doctor coming in there saying her chances is, if she was to come, we don't have the equipment to try and resuscitate her. We don't have an intubation tube small enough to go down to her lungs. So it was bawling after bawling after bawling after doctor after doctor after doctor. And one of our favorite doctors that we still got to see up until she graduated the NICU this month, came in one night, and it was me and my mother-in-law. And we had so many doctors coming in there talking about me and, the chances and just what we would go through. And this doctor came in and he sat us both down. It was me and my mother-in-law, and said, you have two he said, all your doctors have two patients. They have you and they have Harlow. He said, but and he was a neonatologist. He said, my main priority is Harlow. He said, I'm her doctor. And so I'm here to advocate for her. And so that was something that we never thought about. And he came out and he told us, if she was to be born at 330 grams, her chances would not be high of survival. She's so little. We don't have the equipment. She would have to be in a long-term care facility for the rest of her life. And he's like, and I just want you guys to know that before decisions are made, because they have to. Came in, had that hard decision, had to talk about it once my husband got back. And, again, that was Tuesday, all day Tuesday. It was just terrible conversation about her probably not making it one
Yeah.
after another.
Now, what
And
were they saying about you? So, like with Harlow, like, did they say, can this have any effect on your health? And like, were
so,
you in danger, or was it just Harlow?
no, so it was mainly just Harlow. The only thing where my body came into play was if I had to have an emergency C-section. That was where it could really, because I would have to have if I had an emergency C-section, she was so little, she would have to be cut out the classical C-section. So where my uterus is side to side.
Okay.
And then, just how that would change the course for next babies if we ever wanted a baby again. And, so that Tuesday night, we kind of tried to decide. A doctor came in as we were getting ready for bed and was like, so since they weren't doing the strap-on stress test or whatever, for monitoring, they just did the Dopplers, where they came in every 4 hours, checked her heartbeat, and then that was it. And, they said, what would you like us to do at any point tonight? We came in and her heart wasn't beating. Would you like us to try and wait and see if it comes back up by herself, or would you like us to go ahead and do an emergency C-section? He said in that time, he said, we will push the anesthesia in your IV. He said, we will be getting you and we'll be cutting you back before we even make it in the operating room. Like, the baby will be out in 10 seconds. And so we're like, we don't know what to do. And after ever talking, once we had our private moments where it was just me and him, we kind of decided, a lot of people always say, you don't care what the gender is. Oops, sorry. You don't care what the gender is as long as it's healthy and it's going to have a good, healthy life. And at that point, we knew that if Harlow was to be born, she wasn't going to have a good quality life. She wasn't going to have a healthy life. And so we had decided, comfort cares, that if we were to get pushed back into an emergency C-section, we would just hold on to her and let her pass away in our arms.
Okay, so that's what so comfort care is that, like, that's
Just
the name.
them not trying any resuscitation, that they would
Okay.
literally cut her out of me and place her on my chest. And so me and my husband would get to spend her time alive with us and with her in our arms.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So that was
Like,
our
I don't even
decision.
know how emotionally how you
It
even
was,
felt okay. Like, all these doctors coming in,
I mean,
I
it
would
was
be
tears
so
over
scared.
tears. And at some point we felt like we didn't even have tears to cry anymore. And,
Mm-hmm.
me and my husband were good people. We wondered, how is this happening to us? And the mom guilt comes so strong. Is you're
Mm-hmm.
like, I didn't do anything wrong. I did everything right. I didn't even eat deli meat. Like, they say not to eat. I didn't do any of that, and you
Mm-hmm.
sit there and every single night when no one was in our room, we would just bawl because you don't know if in that next 4 hours, if they come and check their heart rate and her heart rate isn't there, are we going to have to hold our little girl
Mm-hmm.
and tell her goodbye? And like, and so that Tuesday we had decided that if that was it, we weren't going to do for an emergency C-section. And if her heart just didn't come out, then if she never got itself back up and they had to do the emergency C-section to get her out, that we would just hold her and let her just pass away, her on our chest and whatnot. That was Tuesday night. And then Tuesday night, as they're telling us all this, they're telling us, like, I'm not leaving pregnant. Like, there's a 0% chance that I'm leaving pregnant.
So at this point, are they just monitoring her
Yep.
and
Every 4
monitoring
hours.
you
Every
and
4 hours, they're
just,
coming in, doing the Doppler, seeing if her heart rate is still there, and then that's it. So that's all they're doing at this point. They're telling me that she's going to come. She can come at any moment now, but we're going to watch her, listen to her heart rate. I won't be leaving pregnant.
now
So
when they
then
say, like, she's coming, like, was your body just going to go into labor? Were they going to induce
they
you at a
thought
certain point?
that her heart rate would stop. They
Okay.
had a feeling that her heart rate was going to just stop.
So
And
that's what they thought was going to happen.
yeah. And if she did come, if I started feeling contractions or anything, that we would do in the C-section.
Okay.
But it was just all up to us, of course, in that moment. If a C-section, her odds were very little, and that she would even be resuscitated, and that they could even put a tube down. And so that's when we had just decided to comfort cares, because
Mm-hmm.
and again, my husband and I struggled hard with the whole, how can we decide that? How can we not try to save her?
Mm-hmm.
How can we just decide to let her pass away? Cause like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not, you, in that moment, you're asked to answer the question that no one should have to answer to.
Yeah, ever answer.
No. And so having to make that decision, we just felt like we were trying to do the best thing we could as Harlow's parents.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and through this course of the 10 months of the NICU, that we've seen things happen to her that no parent should ever have to see. And it's just, you had to have an answer, and none of them, you didn't want the answer to either of them. You didn't want to have to say yes to either.
Mm-hmm.
And so that Tuesday night, we went to bed knowing that if anything was to happen, we would hold her in our arms for her last few minutes, if that was the case. And Wednesday morning, we woke up to the doctors coming in, they, Walked in, they said, "Hey, how are y'all doing? You know, everything okay? We're actually going to discharge you today. There's nothing that we can do." So it was me, my husband, and my mom and mother-in-law. And we're all like, "What do you mean? Like, you just told us we're not leaving pregnant." And they
Yeah.
said, "Since we don't have her on a monitor, there's nothing that we can do here that you can do at home." They said, "So your options are either to discharge and just monitor at home like you have been, or we could put the strap monitor on and constantly monitor her. But we cannot just sit here and watch her not look good and not act on it. And she
That's
won't look
so
good,
yeah, that's
you know?"
so, like, confusing, I feel. Like, I
And
would, like,
so
be so confused.
we were sitting there and we're like, and our family was great advocates with us as well, but they were like, "What do you mean? Like, you were just going to keep her until she has this baby. And now you're telling her to go home when we know the risk of everything."
Mhm. And now you have to go home and not know what the heck's
What,
going on.
yes. And at
Be
this point,
fearful that your baby's heartbeat's stopping when you're
no,
at home.
yeah. And so at that point, I never really, we talked about what was going to happen if it was a C-section, but, it never actually, I didn't actually realize that like her heart not beating, it wasn't going to just be like a miscarriage when everything is just already, it comes out of you. I didn't
Mhm.
realize that being already that far along, I was already going to be set up for a stillbirth
Mm.
at that point because her size wouldn't just
Mhm.
pass through the body naturally. And so went home, ended up discharging that day, went home. Of course, at this point, our family and our friends and our community knows about this. We're sending things out to please pray over Harlow and pray that she stays in the womb and not make it earthside right now and just grow bigger. And we're at home. And we actually, on our way home Wednesday from Little Rock, we called a specialist that my OB wanted us to see. We get an appointment for that next day, that Thursday. So we go home and we try our hardest not to just sit there and listen to her heartbeat constantly. But you're sitting on your couch wondering, is she still there? Like, is she still alive? Is she still beating? Is she still? And I was 24 weeks and she was the size of 20 weeks. I never felt her. So they would ask, is she kicking? I'm like, I've never felt her kick. She was too little for me to even feel her kicks.
Mhm.
So I never had those moments of like, oh, she's still there. Like I can feel her. So it was just a constant waiting and like, me and my husband would be sitting here and he said, "Do you want to go listen to her heartbeat?" And you're choked up because you're like, I don't know. Because what if we go in there and there's nothing? What if what if there's nothing there? So we made it home that Wednesday. And I think all along, me and my husband knew deep down that she wasn't going to pass away. Like it was just this feeling inside,
Mhm.
but she's coming. Like we're not going to take our maternity photos down. We're not going to take away her ultrasound pictures. Like she's still coming. Like we don't know what everyone's talking about.
Mhm.
And that next Wednesday we saw the doctor or the specialist up in Rogers, Arkansas. And, we asked him, he looked at the same thing, did the Doppler and whatnot, said, "Yeah, I see what she's talking about. It's absent flow. It usually goes to reversal after this. Um, I give her 2 weeks and her heart will just stop beating."
Mm.
So not only were we just told this by all the doctors that if she is delivered, that her odds are not very high, but we also hear that 2 weeks. This doctor,
So
the
now you have
specialist
a timeline that
limit
this
of what we
specialist
do.
is telling you.
Yeah, like I don't give her longer than 2 weeks. Her heart rate is just going to stop because she's fighting so hard trying to do everything else. And so we're like, okay, we kind of already had all the other people's voice in our head in the back of it. And then we get another guy telling us like 2 weeks is all I really see her. And at any point, if you are monitoring her and you don't hear her heart rate, go to the emergency room, have a heartbeat check. And at that point, you'll be set up for a stillbirth, a stillborn delivery. So then again, we have to make that phone call. And this specialist appointment, we were really holding out, like, please tell us. Like, it's okay. Like, you've seen this multiple times before
Mhm.
and it's going to be okay. Like, this happens. She'll grow next month. And it's like nothing ever happened in the first place. And that wasn't the case. Told us just, probably 2 weeks. He told us he thought it was a trisomy, which is a genetic disorder. Was 99.9% sure it was a genetic disorder. Do you want to go ahead and get an amniocentesis to see if anything, if genetics will come back
Is that when they like stick a needle,
in your
right?
stomach and into your uterus and pull out amniotic fluid? And so I'm sitting there, I'm terrified. I looked at my husband and I said, what do we do? And my husband was like, that's up to you. He's like,
Yeah.
you're going through that. If you want to, then I'm for it. If not, we don't have to do it. And we said yes, because if something was wrong, we'd want to know for future pregnancies.
Mm-hmm.
So we got it. Well, Harlow didn't have enough fluid in there in the first
To
place.
do it.
So he had to put fluid in before he could even take any out. And
And was that
so,
painful for you?
yes, it was, she told me, oh, this just feels like period cramps. And then I remember looking at my husband crying, and I'm like, there's no way. I don't know how y'all are able to say this to people. So they had
Yeah.
to put fluid in first before they could pull fluid out. So they put the needle into my stomach and it goes in your uterus. And he put the fluid in and he said, where's the needle? I'm like, huh? What do you mean, where's the needle? And Harlow kicked it. She finally got fluid and was able to spread out and like move around that she had kicked the needle. And so then again, they had to go in again and poke me lower into my stomach, into my uterus
Oh my
to get
gosh.
fluid out. So they got the fluid out, got enough and whatnot. He said it'll come back in like a week will be the first result. Second week will be more results to come, but he's 99.9% it's the genetic disorder. And this is why this is kind of all happening. So we go home, leave the appointment, we're in tears. We're like, we thought this was our little last chance of hope that like this will all be okay. We
Yeah,
call
and
our
like
parents.
how were you guys doing at this point together? Like were you just immensely leaning on each other?
Yes, I don't know how I don't know
And
if
were
I
you
would still
guys
be here.
working? Like did you have to work through that
We
like
did
while you
not.
were going through this?
Our jobs were amazing. Like we
Okay.
couldn't have had better jobs at this point that let us, for those 2 weeks that they said that we were going to lose Harlow,
Mhm.
let us stay home together for the full 2 weeks. We had amazing friends, family, and a community that were dropping meals off at our front door, being here for us, sharing words of wisdom and prayer and different things. We have a prayer blanket that we had, it was a cheer team. Someone at church had taken it and they all pray over this blanket. We sleep with it to this night. And
Oh.
it just, we had people reaching out to us, sharing just words of prayer and that Harlow was going to be okay and that everything was going to be okay. But it was always kind of funny is that we always would cry at separate times. So I would be okay. And then he would hit his breaking point. So I would be there for him. And
Uh-huh.
then maybe later that afternoon, it would be the vice versa. I would sit there and cry and he would come and hug me and be that support that I needed at that time.
Mhm.
But through this, we were confused, as I think anyone would be like, what do you mean? Like people have babies all the time. We're married or we have a home. We want a baby.
Yeah.
Why is it happening? And so once we came home from that appointment, we sat here and most of our days were just full of tears. We'd wake up and we'd cry. We'd be scared to go to sleep. We'd listen to her heartbeat right before bed. But like,
Mhm.
what if the next time we woke up, it wasn't there? It was like we didn't want to move forward because we didn't know what the future was going to hold. Like if we could just sit at this one place where we know Harlow's her heartbeat's good, she's fine. We hear her. We're okay right now.
Mhm.
And so for the next 2 weeks, my best friend had created a GoFundMe and it was Harlow's story and everything about Harlow was constantly when I say like she was prayed over all over different states,
Mhm.
like we'd have comments that say like, Harlow, we're thinking about you over in Florida or we're thinking about you over here in, Kansas. Like there was just always such a community that was sharing her page that people were praying over her.
And is that
And
GoFundMe still going?
it's not, we actually ended up stopping it.
Okay.
But I think it's still up where you can at least read from that
Her,
last
her
update of her being born.
okay.
Yes. But we wouldn't go to church or anything. We wouldn't really leave our house. we sat at home, we'd watch church on the TV, and, we'd always put in the comments, if you guys could pray about Harlow, this is what's going on. And we'd have people over on the church service just praying and praying. And we truly felt like in those 2 weeks that we grew so much closer together, because we feel like if something like this was to happen, a lot of couples would kind of drift away. As sad as that is, I mean, that's so much stress on the two of you guys and everything else, that we just felt like it brought us closer, that we don't know how we would have gotten through this if it wasn't for having each other. And so those 2 weeks, we really leaned on each other. We were with each other constantly, making sure the other person was okay. And those 2 weeks happened. My best friend tried to get me to take maternity photos. It's like, no, I just don't know if I want that. What if we take these photos and she's not here? And she made me buy a dress, came over, did my makeup and hair and everything. And it was March 19th, I believe, or maybe it was the day before March 19th. She made me and Bailey take maternity photos with her little Harlow sweater. And it was one of the hardest things I think we had to do, for me at least, is sitting there holding the sweater that we wanted her pictures to be in and not having any idea if she's ever going to wear the sweater. Like, we're taking these photos celebrating her and hoping, that she's going to come and make it alive. And like, we want a baby to bring home. And we're sitting there taking these photos and we didn't know. I remember us taking the photos, and then we got in the car and cried the entire way home because we had no idea. Are we even going to want to see these photos? Are we going to want them? Are we going to cherish them? Are they, should we not have done them? And that was a Monday night. And the next Tuesday, we had a growth scan check. Little Rock wanted us to have a growth scan check if she was still there, just to happen to see, if she's grown any. And so it was a full, I think, around 2 weeks later, maybe close to 3, went to the clinic. And I always remember at some point we wished that like there was a side for like people who are expecting and your babies are healthy and everything's okay. Then like a part where like you don't really know what's going on, because it's so hard to be in rooms and it's sad. You have no idea what you're about to walk into. Like, how is my baby going to look? Like, is it going to be the same size? Is the heart still going to be there? Am I going to have even less amniotic fluid? Like, what's going on? I remember we walked in, it was a high risk appointment, walked in and they took us to like this back room, and immediately my heart dropped. And we took pictures on the wall, and it's like it's some babies that are alive. And then you could see some babies with a little ribbon in the corner, which obviously passed. And so we're seeing this and we're like, why did they bring us in this room? You're thinking about everything. You're internally just nervous. You're like, oh my gosh, what am I about to see? I think I've been okay. What's going on? And they set us back there for the appointment, laid me down, did everything. And we're like, and we try to see like, okay, is the cord still, like, is it still just absent flow or did it move to reversal? Like what? And, we have no knowledge about any of that, but we're trying our best to like see what's going on. And she did have more amniotic fluid than she did. Like, I think she went from like 3, I'm not sure how they measure it, but the number was 3 at the last appointment we had. And this appointment went to 6. So, we're already like almost in tears because we're like, oh my God, that's double the amniotic fluid. Like, okay, everything's going to be okay. And they say, okay, measure her. We're like, how big is she measuring now? Because at this point, I think I was 26 weeks.
Okay.
And we're like, how big is she measuring? And they said 22. So we're like, okay, she was 20. So now she is 22 weeks. And from the first visit that we had, 22 weeks is resuscitation size, like where they can comfortably try and resuscitate if she was to come. So we're like, okay, we feel good. And they get all the pictures and they're like, she has a perfect little nose and a perfect little lip. And we're like, okay, we feel good for the first time in what feels months. And doctors come in and they say, okay, your cord has started to reverse. And so that just hits you in the stomach.
Because the reverse is like that. You didn't want that to happen.
No, because reverse, it starts taking away from Harlow.
Okay.
It starts taking away her nutrition, taking away. And eventually that can lead to like them not surviving because
Yeah.
they're not getting anything that they should. So one of the cords has started to reverse. And so that felt like a gut punch. We're like, okay, how long has it been in reverse? That's just things you wonder. When did it start? Did it stop after we were discharged that Wednesday? Or did it start yesterday? Did it start on the way up here? How long has she been in reverse? Like, is it making it worse on her? Like, how is this affecting her?
But she is growing, so there was some positives.
Something, yeah, she gained weight. She went from 12 ounces to a pound now. So we're like, okay, and the doctors came in, told us reversal, but they said, we now feel comfortable admitting you. We assume that she would be here in the next 2 weeks, so we want you to come get admitted to the hospital, get that second now dose of steroids for her lungs, and see how it goes. Walked right over to, or drove over to the hospital, got it checked in to labor and delivery. And, from the second I walked in, they put me on clear liquid diet for a C-section. Cause at this point we knew it was gonna have to be a C-section because of her size, the reversal, and just my body wasn't going to just progress at this point. It was going to be based on her. The whole time they were telling us, either way, she's not growing great in the womb, but she may not have chances to great being outside of the womb. Neither are great. We just have to outweigh our options for the now part of it. So we got admitted. I was in labor and delivery, checked in for a total of 8 days before we ended up having to do a C-section, which it was the craziest, hardest feeling being in labor and delivery, hearing the other moms around you, having that, laboring, having all that, and knowing that won't be you. Because we knew that I wasn't going to have the option. I was immediately going to have a C-section.
And that is hard.
You hear the mom screaming and you're like, I won't have that. Like that option is now taken away. I won't have that. It'll be a C-section. And got checked in, put me on clear liquid diet, put me on the actual monitors with the straps around and everything. And that's a whole nother thing. I felt like it was so great that we could see her, but now we can acknowledge when she did. And like we can see her heart rate. And every single time we have so many videos on our phone of the monitor, and she'd have a great heart rate, would be beating good. And then it would just drop to like the 50s. And it's like that. Okay, please come back up. Please come back up. Please come back up. Like, don't just stop there. And then she'd come back up and okay, she's fine. Everything's okay. We're in there. They felt comfortable enough, taking me actually out of labor and delivery and moving me to antepartum. Cause on that floor, you could only be hooked up to the monitor for, I think it was 3 hours. And then that was the longest you could be hooked up there. Moved me back there. I was super happy to not be on there because that means like she was looking good enough where she wasn't being monitored 24/7. They had me on there. It was maybe, I can't remember how many nights I actually stayed on that floor. It wasn't a lot because they put the stress test on me and it was terrible. And she was so little that they always had to come in and move me because they couldn't find her. I think that night I was probably on it for like 6 or 7 hours. I was on it for too long. So they had to move me back down to labor and delivery.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So then I got moved back down to labor and delivery and they put me on there monitoring me. They'd say, hey, Harlow didn't look good last night. We want to go ahead and keep you on the monitor, keep you on clear liquid diet. We don't want you because at any point. So, okay, so then the next morning would come, say, hey, she didn't look bad. We feel comfortable taking you off the monitor for a little bit, but just not at any point if we can't see something and if something was to happen. And you're like, I was so happy, but now I don't want you to take me off this monitor.
Yeah, this seems just like such a roller coaster of emotions that you have to go through.
It was terrible. And so I remember they would take me off. I would run in the shower, eat a couple bites, and then be put back in the bed for constant monitoring. I mean, I think the longest that they had me on, it was close to 36 hours one time because she wasn't looking good. So that would be the whole.
From when you got there to like now, so you were there for a total of 8 days before anything.
8 days before I had birth, yeah, or I had the C-section, yeah. So it was a constant. Every morning they'd come in. Okay, Harlow's good on the monitors. Next morning, okay, Harlow didn't look good on the monitors. We don't feel comfortable you being off the monitors. We need you back on to see if something was to happen. Okay, and that was just back and forth, back and forth. Still, doctors would come in and you say, she is little. you guys know about a NICU stay? Like, what does that look like? You know what it looks like for 20, she was very growth restricted. They said, do you know what that looked like for a baby at Harlow size? And we had no idea.
Mm-mm.
And there was an amazing doctor. She came in. She was a fellow. She came in. She pulled a chair up and she sat and talked to us for over an hour and talked to us about NICU, a baby that size from the head to the toes, what every single little thing would look like or could potentially look like for Harlow. And so it was a Tuesday. That Tuesday, woke up, the doctors come in, talk to me and my husband, say, hey, she didn't look great. We want to keep you on the monitor. Again, okay. The nurse came back behind them and said, do you guys have any questions? I said, no, I think we kind of understand everything at this point with everything. She said, okay, well, I just want to let you know I had the same thing happen to me. She's like, I was the reversal on the cord. My baby came early. If you guys have any questions, let me know. So, she sat down and her baby boy survived. He made it out and everything. He was, I think, a little over a pound, but she sat down, she showed us pictures of him and said, like, this is what it looks like for us, and that gave us a hope, like, okay, it's okay.
And this was one of your nurses?
This was the nurse I had that Tuesday because I delivered Wednesday at 3:00 in the morning.
Okay.
So
So this was like your almost like your last nurse because with the rotation.
It was, yeah. And so she was, and it was like
what a blessing.
It really was. She sat down and she told us and showed us pictures of him and how little he was and showed us how she went through all of this. And this was their first kid and it was so many connections. And it was like, I couldn't imagine having any other nurse that day going through all of this. And then
I feel like that
there,
was like God's grace on you.
It was like, he was like, I know you guys are freaking out, but like, you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't something you guys are dealing with alone. So she was there that day and it was fine. Everything was okay. Stayed on the monitor for the entire day. That night, when they were switching shifts, I had another nurse that was there the previous Wednesday I was there. And she walked out that previous Wednesday and said, I'm going to see you and Harlow back because you're not going to get, you're going to stay pregnant. Mm-hmm. And even on my whiteboard, I have the pictures and it was all of them. Stay pregnant, stay baking. And she came in that Wednesday, that night, and she was like, I knew you guys were still going to be here. Aww. And just super sweet and super positive. And so we were excited to have her back. We had this amazing connection to the day nurse that we felt okay. Night shift nurse came on and it was a little bit probably around like after 10:00. I just had a feeling. I was like, I don't know. This is just, I'm scared. Like, we want her here, but like, I'm scared. Like, this just feels different. And it wasn't even like her, I couldn't feel her. It was nothing different, like with my body going on. It was just like, I had a feeling she was going to come.
Like your motherly instinct.
Just kicked in. I was like, I think she's going to come. So not even being dramatic, probably every 10 minutes, that nurse was coming in, having me turn from left to right because she wasn't picking up. She just couldn't get it. Her heart rate would be really low. And so I think from a little, probably around like 10 to 12, I mean, it was like boom, boom. Every 10 minutes she was in there. And I was like, something's like, I was like, she has to be coming tonight. Like, there's just no way. And I think finally I got to sleep maybe a little bit, close to like 1 or 2 o'clock. My husband woke up at 2, he said. I walked around to the computer, looked at Harlow's strips, because they're in like 15-minute increments. And he was like, she hasn't had a dip in 15 minutes. Like, she stayed pretty consistent. And he went back to sleep. Well, then at 3:00, we woke up. And it was the nurse. And she was like, hey, Mom. She's like, doctors need to come in. It's time. Yeah. So then it was 3:00 in the morning. They said it's time. And so you're so prepared at any of this point. We were so prepared. I say prepared, but we were like, she could come. We know she's probably going to come. Like, we're ready for her to be here. Because her sitting here in the hospital bed is almost harder.
I was
not knowing say, what's going on.
It's almost like relief. I mean,
it's like,
maybe you felt a sigh of relief.
It's like, she's coming. Like, this is it. Like, we're not going to have to sit in the hospital anymore and wait and see if she's going to make it. And, all these people we had telling us that she wasn't going to make it in the womb. So in our head, we're like, if she makes it in the womb, she's going to make it out the womb. Like, there's no questions asked about it. So doctor came by, and this was a full week. I mean, it was 8 days. So a week and a day. She came in and, did a last minute check while they were prepping me, getting me ready and everything. It wasn't an emergency C-section, but it was an urgent
Okay.
because Harlow's heart had 4D cells within like 10 minutes. And so they're like, she's getting ready. Like, she needs to
Mm-hmm.
come out. It's not safe for her anymore inside the womb. It's safer for her out. And you know how I said, like, they were kind of always balancing, like, it's not really safe in the womb, but it's not really safe outside the womb. We just have to pick which is good for now.
Yeah.
And at that moment of time, it wasn't safe for her to be inside the womb
Okay.
anymore. And that's why they ultimately wanted to take her out then. Doctor came in, husband's calling our family, telling them, we're about to go in for a C-section, or they're going to get her back within the next 30 minutes. They were measuring her, seeing if she, what she looked like on the last minute size. And they said, okay. And I said, how big is she? They said she hasn't grown. So in those 8 days that I was in the hospital, they were able to give me the second dose of steroid shot for her lungs,
Mm-hmm.
but she hadn't grown any. So she was still measuring around 22 weeks. She was still measuring a pound. Didn't see any changes. So we got back there. And they told us we had a talk. I guess it was probably that Tuesday night into that Wednesday with the doctors. If she has to have a C-section and something, we get Harlow out and we can't resuscitate her. We get her back there, try to intubate her, and we can't. We will just bring her to you and let her pass away on your chest. And that's how you guys will say goodbyes if we can't intubate her. So then, of course, I'm like, okay, we're going to have a baby. Like, this is happening, And then you have in the back of your mind, like, no, like, what if they can't? Like, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to have her just to say goodbye. Like, what do you mean? Like, are you sure? You have all those questions going back. And I've had a lot of friends and family. And, being a nurse, I've gotten to experience, being in labor and delivery with, patients and seeing that. And in my head, I'm like, it's okay. I have my husband. I have him. We're good. He's going to be there with me. Well, he didn't get to go into the OR until they were about to cut me open. It's like I had to go through the spinal block all by myself. I had the best nurse that night. I had one of the best. She
Yeah.
held my hands and made sure I was okay.
Nurses make all the difference.
I
Like,
mean, seriously, I couldn't
they
imagine
can
having
make or
another nurse
break.
that night. And she was holding my hands, and I'm crying because I'm like, is this it? Am I about to meet my daughter? Am I about to say goodbye to my daughter? Like, all within the same minute? Like, what, And my husband's outside. He's scrubbed up in all the gowns, and doctor comes by him and says, hey, if it doesn't work out, do you want us, we'll just come and lay her on you, and you guys can say goodbye like that. Do you want me to go tell the mom right now? My husband was like, no, she knows. We don't need to put any more on her right now if
Mm-hmm.
she's going to do that. He finally walked in, and they're starting the procedure and everything. And in that moment, I have no words to even say how the feeling is of you're being cut open. This is supposed to be like one of the happiest moments. And like, it was one of the scariest because you have no idea what's to come. We don't know how big. We're told a pound at least. So we're thinking, and they always tell sometimes these machines aren't good. They can always be bigger than a pound. So we're like, we don't know what to expect. Like, are we gonna if we're gonna get to hold her? And we asked, can you lower the drape so we could see her? And no, they had to grab her and run. So they were able to intubate her or see if they could. So then we didn't get that. So I didn't get to see what she looked like. We didn't know anything. So they got her out, and my husband says he could tell that she was about to be brought up because someone from the back had a blanket, and then they started walking forward, and he got to see the top of her head, and they ran her into the rest of the resuscitation room. And so I'm sitting there, they're like, okay, everything's out. We're just going to start sewing you back up, and they said, hey, Dad, can you come back here? And so Bailey went back there, and all I was thinking about was they're telling him that they can't do it. She's too little. They're not able to save her. Like, they're going to bring her out. And I'm sitting there, and it felt like 2 hours, even though I know it was probably 30 seconds he was back there with her. And,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, I'm thinking the worst. They're telling him that she wasn't able. It's not safe. We're going to have to say goodbye to her. And my husband stepped around, came back, and had the biggest smile on his face. And was like, do you want to see a picture of her? And so it was like, everything that we had been going through. It was like, yes, I want to see her. She's okay. Like, she's here. Like, and so he showed me the picture of her and how little she was and said, how much? How much does she weigh? Thinking that she was going to be at least over a pound.
Yeah.
And he said, she's 14 ounces. She's 14 and a half ounces.
Oh, just a
And
little nug.
we're like, huh? I've never even heard a baby be that small.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, there's no way, you know?
But she was
And
like breathing on her own, like everything was.
later on, we got to see the notes and they try to let her breathe on her own, try to let her use the CPAP. And at that decision, it was made to intubate. So
Okay.
they went ahead and they were able to get an intubation tube. They said it was super easy. It went through and they were fine. So I'm taken back to post-op where I'm there for 2 hours in a room. And, I think it was a little over 2 hours before I got to see her. You know, they let my husband touch her. They let him get the pictures of her and everything. So I was there and, you know, you're recovering from that and you're like, you're on medication, you're hurting, you're in pain, you're sick. I had a terrible reaction to the anesthesia where I was super sick.
Uh,
And they were like, so finally it was like, I was like 2.5 hours. They came back and they're like, okay. And we have a video of them rolling her by us and I could barely see her, but they're sitting there and they're trying to explain, you know, hey, we can only get the one line in her umbilical cord. We couldn't get the two. She's too little, you know, and everything. And they're like, we're going to go ahead and she can be over in the NICU and we're going to get her settled. And so one thing I never thought of was like, you don't get to see her after C-section. You know, normally I guess you would because they'd be in the room. So we
yeah.
had her, I think her delivery time was 4:03 in the morning. I did not get to go down to the NICU until around 5:30 that afternoon.
Oh, wow. So almost
So yeah, almost, it was a
eight,
little over 12 hours. Yeah.
yeah, 12
Or close.
hours.
Yeah. And I was like, so I didn't get to see her, but I got to see pictures and I got to see, you know, and our parents were there. So our parents were able to go down and see her. And I made my husband FaceTime my best friend so they would hear it from us
Oh,
first. And it was just certain things like that that I didn't think that I was going to have to lose. And I did. Like I didn't get to be there with my parents when they first saw their first grandbaby
yeah.
or anything like that. And we thought, you know, okay, she's here. It's fine. Like everyone thought she wasn't going to make it in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
She'll be good. And through these 10 months, there has been so many ups and downs where we would ask our nurse, like we were supposed to leave the next day to go to work. And we would ask, should we stay? Like, could something happen tonight? You know, she's had pneumonia. She's had blood infections where we're like, should we stay here and not go to work tomorrow? Because we stayed with her for, I mean, probably like the first 3 months of her being born. We were at her hospital
Like in Little
and
Rock.
in Little Rock, yes. And we were there with everything going on, the ups and the downs and the sicknesses and whatnot. And it is just a whole new thing when you're leaving your baby 2.5 hours away and they're sick and you literally are like, you're terrified. You don't want to say goodbye because you don't know. Are you going
Mm-hmm.
to get a call in the middle of the night? And again, whenever I thought of NICU, I thought like, oh, baby was just a few weeks early. Like they're fine. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not as intense as it, you know, it could be. But then hearing all of this and experiencing it firsthand, and she'll be 10 months tomorrow. And so we've been in the NICU. We finally just graduated the NICU this month and moved to an infant toddler unit. Being in the NICU for those 9 months, we have seen so many things that God just has their hand on these babies every step of the way. I mean, God has had his hands wrapped around Harlow since that first appointment and all those people telling us that she wasn't going to be here, that she's not going to have a good quality of life, that she's not going to be healthy. She's not going to make it. Her heart's going to stop beating. You know, we had to prepare to like have her nursery taken down. Her nursery was already up in our house. Like we
And
were
I feel
preparing.
like that's so, it's so hard because, you know, a part of me when I'm listening, I'm like, I can't believe they told you that you would most likely lose your baby because here she is. She's here. She's alive. Like literally a miracle. Like
It has put us in
such a
such a
gift from God.
different perspective. Like we weren't going to come in and take her nursery down because
Mm-hmm.
we knew we had a feeling that she's going to come home and they be a little after she's 1, but she's going to
Yeah.
be here. We're going to be here with her, and that's going to be her room. And it just puts it in perspective for like, you can't believe everything someone says.
No. Yeah, and really your faith is everything.
And it is.
And
And she was I mean, we just don't know if she would truly be here if it wasn't for the power of prayer and
mhm.
everyone that was praying for her. And ever since that first night in the NICU before we left her isolate for the night, we would pray over her. And that's something I'm so happy to say that like that has still happened every single time. And she'll be 10 months tomorrow. Like anytime we have left her bedside for the night, we have prayed over her. And it's a miracle that she's here. And then
Mhm.
we feel like we're so blessed that we get to have her as our daughter.
Mhm.
And we think all the time how like it's hard. This whole journey has been hard. There's been times where all we want to do is just sit and cry and not get up, not shower, not eat, not do anything. And then we just remember how lucky we are because yeah, it's hard. It could be a lot better, but it could also be a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, I look
And
at you and you're incredible for what you've been
thank
through.
you.
It makes me emotional, but you and your husband and Harlow. Um,
It, we feel like we were the best fit for her. And we know that like, as much as we love her, there's no way that like we were chosen specifically to be her parent
yeah.
because there's no telling if the world was different. And like, what if parents got this baby that was, her odds were 0 to nothing and they just stopped believing? Like, what if our hope in Harlow and like our faith in her kept her going?
Yeah.
Like, we just didn't sit there and give up and say, okay, well, there's nothing we can do. Like, we still did whatever we could.
When you
We
were
just,
connected to her. So it's like if you would have given that hope up,
and
you
that's what I
know,
feel like it was so hard. Like, them telling us, like, her odds just weren't good. There's nothing I can do. This is what it's going to happen.
yeah,
I'm like, how can I give up on something that's still inside me? That still has a heartbeat.
has a heartbeat.
That is still, and I just never understood that someone could just easily have say like, yeah, she's not going to make it. I'm sorry. There's nothing you can do.
I mean, like, so she was born in the NICU.
Mhm.
How long after that did you go home? Because, I mean,
So
or
she
how
was
long did they have
born.
you stay in
So
Little Rock?
she is currently still in Little Rock. So she was in the NICU, at one of the hospitals in Little Rock. She was born in March, the end of March. Um, she's went through a lot of up and downs. She's been extubated 3 times now, which is where they take the breathing tube out, let her try on her own. She's gotten sick back to back. And so at UAMS, she was actually over there for, I think it was about 5 months. She was in that NICU. They came to her care team came to us and they said, we think it's better if she's at a level 4. UAMS is a level 3.
Okay.
So they said, we think it's best if she's at a level 4. So she can see pulmonologists, cardiologists. They can take just more care of her, get scans that we can't do here, for her. And it was one of the hardest things because we had grown so close to our nurses. I mean, we had primary nurses over there that anytime they worked, they had her. That we truly felt that we could leave Harlow, and if they were there, we knew
You
that
just
she
had
was
this trust.
100%. We had the trust, and we keep in contact with even now that she's moved from there. And one of our nurses have even told us, she cares so deeply about Harlow that whenever we asked her to primary on Harlow's second day of life, she truly thought she was going to be going through the grieving process with us.
Mm.
And she thought she was going to be with us through all of that. And so it's not even like to us and our family, but like so many different people. Like that hospital and like all those nurses know Harlow and they'll
Mm-hmm.
tell Harlow's story and they'll be like, we had a baby that was 14 ounces and she's happy and she's chubby and like they all see us on Facebook and they all keep up with her, ask about her and everything. So it's 5 months there at UAMS. They moved us to Children's, which was a level 4 NICU
Okay.
in September. So she's been with them almost a month now, or almost 5 months, close to it. And we're still currently there. We just graduated the NICU, which was super exciting because it was the first time in her life that she hasn't had to be in like a intensive care unit.
Yeah. So what allowed her to graduate from there?
she finally, so she got a tracheostomy. And so
Okay.
that was, the airway that, breathes for her. And, we all kind of decided, we prayed all the time, God, if this is your plans and this is your plans, all we want is to bring home a happy and healthy little girl. That's all we want. And it came to it where it was kind of all looking like the directions needed. She needed a trach. And her thing is that she can breathe. She can breathe on her own, but her lungs are just so damaged from how little and how early and premature she was that we could sit here and wait for another year for her to finally get on a nasal cannula to come home. But then it was like developmentally, that's not fair to her to have to sit here in the hospital for another year or
Mm-hmm.
however long it may take for her to get to come home and miss out on everything and be in a hospital well over until she's almost 2 or whatever. They came to us, they told us that it was, it was a hard decision, but it was like once we finally made that decision, we felt relief
Mm-hmm.
because we're like, now we have a light at the end of the tunnel on when our little girl can come home.
So the trach will help her, just her lungs. It helps her
Her
lungs more
lungs,
than
yes,
anything.
well, it'll just help because her lungs, every time they intubated her and then extubated her, was putting more force on her lungs, making, she has to breathe. And it was kind of like every time she would be intubated, we'd take steps forward and then we'd extubate. And she just got so tired, so weak, so bad that it was like we were back to square one. Her
Mm-hmm.
lungs would look good and then they wouldn't look great. And so it's like now that she has that trach, and it's the craziest feeling of looking at her and being so happy and smiling and being like, I'm so sorry. It was so hard for you to breathe. It was so hard. It took so much effort for her. She got tired and it was just hard for her to breathe. And now like seeing her being able to like sit up and laugh and watch movies and like just have fun and be held by different people and like breathing not be an issue for her.
And she seems to have such great awareness. Like
She's
for 10 months and being a like micro preemie.
She's the nosiest little girl. We always like it. Whenever they were in the NICU, it was like open pod. So there'd be 7 babies plus her. There'd be a
Okay.
baby on the right, like having something going on with it. And she would be like, looking back and they're like, Harlow, you cannot do that. You cannot be nosy. But I mean, it's crazy that just the trek has given her so much freedom and so
Mm-hmm.
much happiness to where like, she's like, I'm good. She's like, it's not hard for me to breathe right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they even taken x-rays from her previous one to this most recent, one that we've gotten. And they're like, yeah, her lungs look better. And it's like just how much it's not putting stress on her lungs.
Yeah.
And they
And
say with
now,
it,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, they say just like with time and growth is what helps these babies. So
Okay.
like the bigger she gets, the more, area around her lungs she has, the capacity, and it's going to be easier for her. So that's the whole thing with the tracheostomy is she may have it for 2, 3, or 4 years and then she'll get it taken out. And that's what
That's what I was gonna ask.
And they just think that she'll have it for a little bit. Their goal is to always get it removed by kindergarten.
Okay.
They're very hopeful that she won't have it for that long. She's been the boss this whole time, so she'll tell us, obviously. But they think that she'll just have it for a couple years and then she'll be big enough and strong enough and her lungs will have grown that she won't need it anymore.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's happy to see now. Because of course it's terrifying because you don't want your daughter to go through a surgery. You don't want her to
Yeah.
have to go through everything she's gone through and add something to it. And now it's like we look at her and she smiles and she laughs and she grabs her toys and she watches TV with her dad. And like she's a happy baby. Like, and like she's
Mm-hmm.
thriving now and like she's getting to experience. She gets to roll over with therapies and happy and she tolerates her therapy. So like beforehand, she'd do it just for a couple minutes and get way too out of breath and start working too hard to breathe. But they couldn't do anything with her. And she was like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a life changing experience for her and for us that we get to see her so happy.
That's incredible. Like, I just feel like you must feel such relief, like I said. So when did she get
hmm
that done?
I think it was December 6th.
Okay.
So she got the surgery. I believe it was December 6th. Yes. And, they actually paralyzed them for a full 7 days after the surgery. They use a paralytic
Oh
because
wow.
they don't want that baby moving so much that little hole, that soma gets messed up any. So she was actually paralyzed for a full 7 days, wasn't moving, wasn't awake. They were just letting that completely heal. So on the 7th day, they did the first trach change, and then they started lowering her medicine. So that day, I think it was a Thursday or Friday that she got it. I think it was a Friday. So that Friday we were up there. We finally got to hold her. And even that Friday, she was barely awake. She'd kind of open your eyes. But then we come the next Saturday, and it was just like day and night. Like, she was laughing at my husband. And it was the cutest thing, when she had the intubation tube, she couldn't put her hands there like a normal baby because she'd pull it out by accident. And so it was the cutest thing is that she would kind of like see if she could put her hands to her mouth and was like, okay, they're not going to get on to me about it. And it's like something so small like that. Like a baby just wants to put their hands in their mouth, and she can now without anyone like pulling it away, telling her she can't do that. So she got it December 6th, was paralyzed for that week, and then has honestly been so great since. I mean, it's the happiest thing to see. And especially as parents, you're like, okay, it's right. Like, this is what was needed. And like, you just feel good. You're like, she's happy. That's all you ever want, is to see your child happy.
And she is happy.
And
Like,
she's so
whenever I
happy.
see your post, I'm like, it's just her little smile. And she does have that cute button nose. Like you
She
said,
does have to,
from the
yes,
ultrasound, when
yes,
they said she has a cute button nose, I'm like, she definitely
she
does.
does. And so now it's just like a day and night. It's like we get to see her personality come and like her be sassy towards us or happy or upset. And that's like, even like something as small as like her 2-month-old shot or her 6-month-old, when she was having to get her vaccines and everything, people would be like, oh, I bet that was so hard to see. I'm like, no, it was actually one of the best things to see because she was crying. She was acting like a normal baby. Like she was doing baby things that she should be doing, not just comatose laying there in a bed. And so it's been so good.
I mean, and you and your husband, how often you get to go up there on the weekends?
Yeah, so I work a set schedule of Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and I work my 12-hour shift back to back. And then my husband, he works 3 p.m. to 11:30 around 3 to 11, gets home around 11:30. And he works that Sundays through Thursdays. So usually Thursdays will be my day to either like kind of clean the house, get stuff ready, laundry, whatever, or sometimes I'll just go up early to spend time with her. And then Fridays, we're both usually there. We get there early in the morning. It's 2.5 hours away, so we usually try and get there around like 9:30, 10 o'clock. Get there, spend all day Friday with her. And now that she's in a private room, we can actually spend the night with her. So we actually get to like wake up in
so
the
you get to
morning
sleep in
and
there.
see her. Yes.
Oh, that's
Which we haven't
nice.
been able to do in the past 5 months. So now we get to like go to sleep and say goodnight to her and pray over her and go just lay down next to her. And then we get to wake up in the morning and like see her bright-eyed and everything in the morning. So
Is
we're
she
there all
so
day.
excited when she sees you in the morning?
It is. It's like finally now that she's like realizing who we are, it seems like, because I've always struggled with like, does she even know who I am? She sees so many different people every single day of her life. Like, does she even know that me and who we are? And it's like now she thinks that my husband is the funniest person in the world. He could just like step over her bedside and she's grinning like ear to ear. And so it's been nice spending that Friday, Saturday, and then Sundays we'll leave pretty early around 9 o'clock because my husband has to come home and he literally changes and then heads straight to work.
Okay.
And so for sure we're always there Fridays and Saturdays and leave early morning Sundays.
What has been like the most helpful thing for you guys going through this process? I mean, even though Harlow's here and she's doing so great, you still only get to see her on the weekends. You're working, like you are going to work like that. It must be difficult. Like, I mean, you're probably thinking of her all the time.
It's
Like,
it
what
is
has
very it's hard. It's having each other has been the biggest thing and whatnot. But I feel like we get asked that question a lot. Like, how is it so hard? Like, it has to be hard going day to day, going to sleep and your child being 2.5 hours away. And I think for the both of us, it's us knowing that almost a year ago that she wasn't supposed to be here. We were told by so many people that the chances of us ever bringing her home or her even making it outside my belly were 0 to none.
Mhm.
So it's like we wish nothing more that we could spend all day 24/7 with her, but we just feel so grateful that we get to spend what we do with her
Mhm.
because she wasn't supposed to be here
Mhm.
in the first place. And so we feel lucky enough that we get to spend the weekend with her because we know how easily it could be nothing with her.
Yeah.
But I mean, even it's that part is hard of it. And then of course we have so many close friends and family right now that are, pregnant and that are about to have babies. And we both struggle pretty hard sometimes with that because you're nothing but happiness for those friends and family. I am so happy that I get to see some of my best friends be the best moms that they're
Mhm.
gonna be. And it's more like I get a little sad just because I don't know if I'll ever get to experience that again.
Mhm.
And that can be kind of harder sometimes because I'm like, we may never have another baby. This may be our only one. And then we've gotten to miss out on so many things of Harlow's first
Mhm.
that she's done or that she's gonna do and we won't be there for.
Yeah.
And so we just try to always think that like, we may not see the first time she stands or, or whatever, rolls over all by herself, but like we get to see it in
Yeah.
general. We will get to see it when people told us we weren't ever going to.
Um, no, and that's such a good way of looking at it is she's here. Like
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's always going to be, you know, the best answer is that she's here and there's
Mm-hmm.
just comfort in having that.
Mm-hmm.
W- With her having the trach,
Mm-hmm.
did they say how long she'll need to be where she is before like what does that look like for her coming home?
So right now that she moved over to that infant toddler unit, basically all we're doing right now with her and the doctors doing for her are getting her ready to go. So they've
Okay.
started weaning her supplements that she's on. They say the time in that third trimester of her in my belly, which she never got to, is some of the most important time because they're getting all the
Mhm.
calcium from your bones. They're getting all the supplements through you. Well, she didn't get any of that. So she's been on so many supplements trying to help that. Well, now she's finally getting this weekend they got to wean some away and take some away. And they're hoping this next week we'll be able to take them all away.
Oh wow.
So weaning her supplements and they're also like her sedation medication that she's had to be on, whenever she was born, she was on fentanyl, morphine, and, quite a few things. And so they had to put her on other medications to help the withdrawal from
Mhm.
those. Well, now we're trying to get her off of these medications because she can't come home on them. So that's their steps with her getting her off of those medications to come home. And then as well as she's on a hospital ventilator right now, which they will have to switch her to a home vent. So our next process with that as well is going to try and get her to a home ventilator that she likes and that she does well with. So it's kind of weaning her medications that she can come home on, getting her to the right ventilator to come home on. And then me and my husband actually has to take certain classes to do. So
Okay.
we had to learn the trach care, how to do the trach care around the stoma and everything. And then this past week, we actually got to learn how to change the trach out. So I did my first trach change Thursday and he got to do his Friday. And we both have to do a minimum of 3 for each one. So like that's our steps on getting her home is us getting ready, us preparing, us taking classes to learn how to do something. We're CPR certified, but we have to learn like trach specialized CPR and certain steps. And so we're really hopeful that we can get her home within the next like 3 months around and that she'll be able to come home. And it's crazy to us that she's never even like been in her hometown.
Mhm. No, but and I feel like I mean, I feel like I I don't know what it feels like. Like you said that you didn't have some of these first with her, and you didn't get to hold her right away. Like there was all these things, but there's just going to be this like immense amount of joy when you bring her home and
Yeah, like
you
I
have all
can't
these
even
firsts at home with her.
home. Yeah, it's like the first time I got to hold her, I think it was 2.5 weeks. And then I finally got to hold her. My husband got to hold her when she was 3.5 weeks old. And it's like, and it was the craziest thing is someone said to me in the NICU as a respiratory therapist, I said something about coming home. Said, yeah, but are you ready for all those restless nights at home? And I was like, I would be more than happy to wake up in the middle of the night and hold her on our couch And
Mhm.
if she wants to stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning, me and my husband will be more than happy
Yeah.
to just walk through those front doors with her, and something we really didn't even think about too is that like when she leaves the hospital, she's leaving in an ambulance. So she'll get transported here in an ambulance and one of us will get to ride down with her. So it's like even that first time walking through the door, it probably
Mhm.
won't even be us. It'll probably
Mhm.
be the EMS getting her set up and making sure she's okay. But it's like you said, like all the first that we'll get to experience here, like
Mhm.
sitting on our couch watching TV will be the best thing to us. Like we can sit in her room right now and watch TV, but like just being here and being a family. And how I try to tell people all the time is like, right now we just feel like our heart isn't whole. It's like our heart is here with our dog and our family. And then we're leaving a big part of it up in Little Rock every time we
Yeah.
leave. And so it's like you are just longing for something and you're just waiting for it to hurry and get there and be able to have your heart just whole again. And I think for us, like, we're just so excited when that day where it's going to be all three of us in here and like we'll finally feel like our heart is whole
Mhm.
after how many months and almost a year.
I
It'll be great.
I am
It'll probably be the best day ever of our life.
I'm excited. I can't wait for that to happen. Like I want to continue to follow Harlow's story
Yes.
and like you talking about her like hopefully getting her trach off by kindergarten like
Yeah.
that brings me such immense joy to hear that. Like the fact that she defied like all the odds.
She
Like
really did. She had everything going against her, every word going against her. And I no doubt in my mind know that God brought her here to share her testimony, to share her story, for us to share her story to other parents that are going through the same thing, for other parents that have gotten terrible news at that one appointment,
mhm
just to not give up and like that baby is yours and like the hope that you have for that child is like none other and can
mhm.
get them so far.
Did any of the doctors or nurses that, brought that news to you, did any of them, like, once Harlow was born and they knew, like, she was there, like, did they come in and say, like, I can't believe it? Or, like, I'm so sorry that we thought the
No.
opposite? No.
So no, surprisingly, my OB that I had, we still like her and everything, but between all that craziness times, we had to go into her for a heartbeat check.
Hmm.
Literally walked in, put the thing on, heard a heartbeat, and looked at us and said, I'm just really surprised she's still here. And, I had my follow-up appointment there to see my incision, to check it out and everything. And we really expected her to come by or reach out and be like, how is she doing? How
Yeah.
is it? How is everything? And we never did. We never heard from the specialist.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and so yeah, it's what's crazy.
That's
It's like
disappointing to me. Like, I know for
no,
me, like, I would, it's a little
what's just
hurtful.
exactly hurtful, I think is like the perfect word. It's like, you thought we weren't going to have her. You're supposed to
Hmm.
be here for me in those. And I was really hoping that at least our OB, and we still love her, that it was like, cause she did exactly what she was high risk. Thank goodness. And that's another God thing is we didn't know what doctor we wanted. And thankfully she had an appointment and she had availability and she was already a high risk doctor. So when she saw the signs that it wasn't capable in our hometown anymore, she immediately sent us out and knew what to do.
Hmm.
But it was like, I wish she would have just stepped in the room and
Yeah.
said like, I'm so happy that she's here.
Hmm.
Like, I'm so happy she's doing okay.
Yeah, just
And
any
then
bit
it
of
was,
acknowledgement because
and
that put you guys in such a darker place than you probably even needed to be. I mean, and I get it. Like, it was setting you up in case it did happen,
of course,
but it didn't. So maybe
mhm,
you didn't have to go through all of that
all of it.
heartache.
I mean, it was every single day, it just felt like something new was going to happen. We didn't know what we were going to wake up to. We didn't know what was going to be said. We didn't know, like, am I going to have to see you? And the next time I see you, it's going to be to set up our stillborn,
Mm.
like our stillbirth. Like, is that how we're going to do it? Like, and that was another thing that I had to like, I could not comprehend trying to sit in my couch and prepare for a stillborn delivery. Like, and I had one of my mom's friends reached out to me and talked to me on the phone and she talked about her story, about how
Mhm.
she had a stillbirth and how she let me ask her questions about, cause in my head, I'm like, I can't imagine having to start going through that birthing process knowing that you don't get that baby at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's crazy to me when we think back of it that we had to go through all those emotions.
Yeah.
Like we had to go through telling our
I
parents that their grandbaby maybe not make it. We had to go through telling our best friends that this baby that we've all prayed over and are happy that they're here may not make it home. That we've had to sit by ourselves and thank this baby that we've prayed over and that we're so excited that we finally got a positive pregnancy test and this is happening and we're so excited that what happens if it doesn't come out how we want it to? What if something happens? I'm just preparing for all of that on top of, whenever you go into the NICU and you have a preterm baby, they all kind of say, prepare to probably discharge around your delivery date. So she was born in the end of March and her delivery date was, I believe, June 25th. And now it's January, I think like 2026.
mm-hmm.
And we're still in the hospital. And then it's just like preparing for that. And it's all these emotions that constantly just like wear down on your body. And you're like, and there's times where I would ask them, like, can you please call and check on her? Like, I'm scared. Like you go through so much and your body physically goes through it being like, I'm just going to check on my own daughter because what if they tell me blank, blank, and blank happened? And there's multiple times where we've gotten calls in the middle of the night. Hey, Harlow, she's not looking too great. We're going to go ahead and get an x-ray of her belly. She went from, only requiring 40% of oxygen to now she's at 80% of oxygen. And like, there's been times where like, hey, she's not looking really good. Like, we're going to go ahead and have to reintubate her. And we've gotten up, called into work and drove the 2.5 hours in the middle of the night and have gotten there at 3:00 in the morning. There's been times where something has happened and we are in Little Rock, but we're at this place we stay and we wake up in the middle of the night and see 3 missed calls from the NICU and your heart just sinks and you're like, oh my God, is everything okay? And it was about something and she's sick and you have to go up there and she has a blood infection now. Like a blood infection's terrible. That's hard. How are they getting through it? Her pneumonia, her lungs look terrible. And you can't even comprehend trying to think of all the emotions that you felt and it doesn't feel real. Like when we sit here and we talk about it, we're like, how did that happen? How are we here? Like, how did we make it through it?
Mm-hmm.
Like there were days where I would sit in her NICU room and would sit there and would cry all day. Because when she was so little, we couldn't touch her, every now and then we could touch her and change her diaper, but you have to be so careful. They're so, they're just so little. She was tiny and we were scared to touch her. We were scared to do anything. We didn't want to make her upset. She was so little. The first couple of days of her life, they had to put tape around her because she was rubbing her skin and was rubbing it raw. And it's like, well, that terrifies me. Like, I don't want to touch her. I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt her. She's so fragile. And we look back on that and we're like, how was she ever? Like, we always will constantly look back at pictures of her being like, my husband has a picture of her wedding ring or his wedding band around her little foot, like around her ankle.
Oh my gosh.
Like how
That's
tiny she was. And we look at her now and we're like, you're so chunky.
Yeah, she is
Like
a little
she's chunk and she has the big
What
old
does she eat? Like, what do they feed her?
She's on the formula still.
Okay.
So the same time whenever she got her trach, they put a little G-tube in, which is like a feeding tube. They went ahead and did that because she's not able to eat by mouth yet.
Okay.
So they have her on milk, a formula. It's so funny because all those times that she was so little, they constantly were like, we need to up her calories. We need to up her calories. We need to add protein. We need to do this. And it's like, once we got to children's a little bit after we got there, they're like, so we kind of need to cut her back. She's kind of a little too round.
Oh.
And so we were like, all those times that they were like, she's too little, she's too little, she's too little. And now they're like, well, we kind of got to cut back on her calories. So now she's not on a lot of calories, but she is getting like a normal type of formula, that she gets on her feeding schedule just through her tube and whatnot. And so she's not gaining as quick as she was, but she still is a little chunk. She has a good old little belly on her.
Mm-hmm. And when are you able to give her something other than milk? So with that tube, is it a G tube?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They'll start being able to feed her other types of foods?
I'd
like
assume
purees?
so. We'll have to, start going to her like pediatrician and whatnot, because we asked that not too long ago because we're like, obviously formula isn't going to help her nutritionally for too long. And they told us that we'd follow up with our pediatrician and talk about nutrition wise and everything. And eventually we would be able to switch her to like a pureed baby food. And that's one of the hardest things is we'll talk about and they're like, well, you know, she's 10 months old, but she's only adjusted to 7 months. So technically she's adjusted to 7 months old. And we're like, well, you know, at 7 months old, you can start feeding them baby food. You can start, you know, introducing them into food and everything. And so
Yeah.
that's another thing that we've like had to learn, like, okay, yes, she's 10 months, but she's of course not going to be doing something that a 10-month-old baby would normally start to do. We kind of have to go like that. And that's another thing, you know, they tell us, you know, she's not going to start walking at 12 months. You know, she may walk at 18 months. And me and my husband have always been like, okay, but at least she's walking,
Yep.
you
My
know?
daughter's 15 months old and she just started walking. But
Yeah,
it's
I'm like,
crazy because she's like walking so good. We're like, okay, she didn't walk at 12 months or right
but
after
she's
she turned a year,
doing
but she's
amazing now.
doing amazing.
And it's like, it's just so crazy. And, you know, at my work, I'll talk to some people and so many people have been really great. We haven't really had any like hateful comments because I post Harlow all over TikTok and like
Oh my
post
gosh. Well, I
her.
hope you would have no hateful comments.
Well, you know, we have other friends that are in the same situation and they get hate comments and people say nasty things. And I'm like, I just, you know, truly couldn't imagine. Like everyone loves Harlow. Everyone thinks
Mhm.
she's the best baby and the, you know, a miracle. And we've seen stuff where people have commented hate on other people's profiles that are like Harlow, that has a tracheostomy, that has a G-tube. And we're like, these babies are some of the happiest babies that we've ever seen.
Mhm.
And so, you know, people have said before, like, you know, before she got the trach and the G, when is she going to come home? And we're like, we don't know, you know, she has to breathe on her own and she's not doing that yet, but she may have to have a G tube. And I remember telling someone and they said, oh, and it was like, oh, you're like, I said, she was born at 14 ounces. If that's the only thing she has wrong, that eventually she won't need it, then we're more than happy
Yeah.
to have that.
Even
And,
if
you
she
know,
needed it, once again, she is here. Your daughter is alive.
and so that has been the only thing that has caught me off guard is someone said, oh, I'm like, no, we're more than happy and capable of taking care of her
Mhm.
needs, you know? I mean, it just has been, we've been very thankful in that, and that we haven't had a lot of people be ugly or say any hateful things or comment ugly things. Everyone just is so proud of her because
Mhm.
I feel like so many people know where she's came from
Mhm.
and could fit in the size of our hand. And now we get tired of holding her after a little bit because she's so chunky.
Mhm.
And so it's
That's so funny.
crazy.
How how have you healed? Like, do you feel that you've started a healing journey with like what you went through with your pregnancy? Or do you feel that, like, how has that journey been?
I feel like a lot of it, I don't feel like I was ever pregnant. You know, I never felt like through the beginning of it, you know, when we found out we were having a boy, we were really excited. Then we found out we were having a girl, and I did feel instantly connected. It was like
Mhm.
it was like, because I walked around and told everyone, like, I think I'm having a girl. I think they're wrong. I think I'm going to walk in one day. Sure enough, they did just surprise us and tell us. It's like I felt instantly connected, but like I never got to feel her. I never, you know, looked
Like, feel her
pregnant.
move.
Yes, like I never felt her move.
Sometimes, and it might not be the case for you, but I've heard that where your placenta is located
Depends. Yes.
depends. Like,
Yes.
because my one of my friends was like, I never felt my baby kick, even
Yes,
when
I
they were
have heard
like
that.
big
Big.
toward, yeah, like, and like
Yes.
third trimester. And it's
Yes.
where your placenta is. So it could have been that she was so tiny, but it also could have just been where your placenta
Yes.
was.
And so I felt like I never got to feel her anyway. And then I
Yeah.
never looked pregnant. And I feel like looking pregnant is like so much part of like, oh my gosh, look, I have a bump. And I'd always raise my shirt and I'd tell my husband, like, look at my baby bump. And he's like, I don't really see anything, you know,
Yeah.
and he was right. I've really never had one, but it's like, I never felt pregnant. And then it was like, as soon as that March date hit, I believe it was March 4th, it was never really about me, like, or anything. It was constantly like, I was worried about her. I wanted to know
Hmm.
about her. And I feel like since being pregnant, like I haven't ever, I mean, I feel like there was never healing to do. Like it was like nothing ever, you know, I never felt pregnant. I never, you know, physically the pain of the C-section was super rough. I had to have
Mm-hmm.
a classical, so my uterus was cut open from side to side instead of vertically. That was pretty hard healing wise. I think with the healing with me though, I feel like I never had to heal. There was nothing ever there. Um, I think the most I've struggled with would be the future of like future pregnancies and
Mm-hmm.
future, you know, C-sections that would have to have future kids. And, we wanted like 3 or 4 kids. And then this happens and it's like, you're terrified.
Mm-hmm.
Because what if it was just a fluke accident, like they said, but what if it wasn't? And it happens again. And with the C-section I had, they would say they would take me at like 35 weeks because they
Okay.
wouldn't want my uterus to ever feel a contraction in fear of it rupturing. It's like that's something I think about all the time. I'm like, that terrifies me because
Mm-hmm.
I want to be here for Harlow.
Mm-hmm.
We want more kids. Like my main thing is Harlow now. Like I want to be here for every single part of Harlow's life
And
that
I
she's worked so hard.
definitely, I can relate with you there.
Mhm.
I did not have anything close to what you went through, but I had, I had to have a C-section.
Yeah.
I had preeclampsia at the end of my
Hmm.
pregnancy. So I just didn't feel good. I had postpartum preeclampsia. So after my daughter was delivered,
Hmm.
I had immense high blood pressure, had to be on medication. It was just a scary time. And I really didn't
Hmm.
think it bothered me. And now I'm like, I just told my husband this week, I'm like, I I don't know if I can see myself pregnant again.
No.
I'm
And
like,
it's like,
I want to be a mom to 2 or 3 kids, but
hmm,
I don't know that I see myself carrying a baby.
yeah,
And
it's hard.
maybe I'll get there. I don't know. I mean, there's other ways of
Hmm.
bringing a baby into the world.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I can definitely like relate with you there. I can't relate obviously with what you went through, but
But
I'm
it's
like
still,
I
it's
can
so
relate.
scary because you're like, you want to be there for your little girl for everything. And you're
Yeah.
like, you were so lucky that, you were okay, even though it was so hard with your blood pressure and with all that and the scariness of it and trying to be a new mom
Mhm.
with that going on. And it's like, sometimes I'm like, I couldn't imagine going through another NICU stay or another anything and still trying to be the best mom that I could for Harlow.
Yeah.
And sometimes to me, I'm like, if I was to have another baby and something was to happen like it did this time, I know Harlow would still be loved, obviously, but it's like, I just want to give her, I want to be the best mom.
Yeah.
And like, could I do that if I went through the same situation that I did this time
Mhm. Well, and
with
you
her?
are an amazing mom.
Thank you.
You're doing an amazing job. Like I cannot put myself in your shoes.
Thank
I've
you.
thought of you very often. Like I just think of your journey and that's why like I said I wanted to share it because
Yes.
it's one to be shared.
Thank you. No, it's just the support that we've had has been unmatched. Like even from like a stranger online commenting or, I get so many DMs on like Instagram and TikTok being like, I'm in the same situation as you. Like I just had my baby at 24 weeks. I'm struggling. It's hard. I don't know what to do. And it's like, it's so nice that I can be someone's help
Mhm.
because I had people that reached out to me in those
Mhm.
moments when we were in the hospital bed being like, I was a high risk. They told me this. I know how you feel. This is, you're not alone. Please, reach out if you need anything. And it's so nice that like, yes, all the heartbreak that we had to go through, all the ups and downs that we had to go through. I think I speak for me and my husband both when we say if we knew it was going to end up like this, we would do it all again. We would do everything again. We would go through every heartbreak, every tearful journey, every small, like every anything. We would go through it again just to see how Harlow is. Like we have no doubt in our minds that we would go through it all again to
Mhm.
just have our little girl that's the happiest thing, thriving now. There's
What
just no question.
what advice I mean, you've obviously given a lot, but what direct advice could you give to any parent? I guess going through so
Mhm.
what was your exact diagnosis?
As far as like whenever we
Like
didn't
the
really,
for
it
her
was just
umbilical cord.
I said it to you the other day and I cannot,
Ab
a stolic I know I may have to look it up and say it. My
because
husband's the one that's really
that would
good.
be like when you talk about I guess like your what exactly happened. That's really like there's a few things, but that was the
Yes,
direct
the
link to
main,
everything.
yes. Let me see. AEDF for absent end diastolic flow.
Okay.
That's what it was actually, the diagnosis of it.
So, what advice would you give to a mom, parents out there that are currently in this, back in your shoes when you were first diagnosed with this?
Is to truly be your baby's advocate. Be there for that baby. You are the only one that has that connection to that child. If you think something is wrong, speak up. Don't stop talking about it. Continue to voice your opinion, no matter how many people you upset, that get annoyed with you, that don't want to hear you out. Is constantly be that advocate for that baby, because you're the only one in their corner. And that was a huge thing, is I felt like all these doctors were talking about statistics. My baby isn't a statistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's my baby.
Amen.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge thing, is I felt like we went through all this is, baby, the statistic isn't high. This isn't here. And it kind of feels like they're just telling you, like, if your baby's a statistic, I'm sorry if it passes away. And that's kind of how it is. And it's like, no, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to speak up and I'm going to talk, because my baby's not a statistic.
Mm-hmm.
My baby is my baby. It's in my belly. It's like, you're not just going to act like it's just another number that you can add to a book
Mm-hmm.
about things that didn't go right, and just group it in that corner.
Mm-hmm.
And then to truly never give up hope. Like the hope that me and my husband always had for her and the other people that family had, that I truly feel like that's a huge reason why she's here. But even if you have no one and it's just you, the hope that your baby feels you have is so much stronger than anything else. I feel like I truly feel like Harlow knew that I was never going to give up on her, no matter what, is that she was going to be okay, because I knew she was, and I was going to do everything that I could to make sure she was going to be okay,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what it looked like. If that meant me and her dad upsetting a whole bunch of people because we wanted them to make one more check or one more test or one more heartbeat listen or whatever, we were going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
because we weren't going to give up on her.
That's incredible. Like, this story is just one that honestly I feel like it's changed my life. I mean,
We will always share it with whoever, because we've learned that so many people have gone through this
yeah.
same thing. And even if their story didn't look the same or come out the same or in the same, that we still are so connected, because we got to go through some of these journeys together, and you can relate, and you can connect with someone that said, yeah, they told me my baby wasn't going to survive either, and it did. And you can just say, they don't know everything. They're not the best. They're not
Mm-hmm.
again, it just feels like a statistic in their book, that your baby is just another number that they can add to a group. And that's not the case.
No. No, and especially with Harlow, she's a miracle.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing Harlow's story, and I can't wait to see what she does and
Yeah.
what's next for your family as she continues to just get stronger
Yeah.
and is able to come home. I will
Yes.
be
I'm so happy.
constantly following your journey.
Yes. Well, thank you for asking me on. I'm just so excited. I think she has a story that deserves to be told to everyone in the world, near and far. She's worth it, and she's worth having a story to be told about. I think God had her on this earth to share her testimony to
Mm-hmm.
everyone. To never give up hope. Never.
Never give up hope. Well, I thank you so much for being on again. And like I said, I'll be continuing to follow Harlow's journey. And I hope that hopefully this reaches other moms and gives them
Yes.
hope.
Yes. I hope so. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome.